Okay, guys, so my apologies. I started to record another video. It didn't work, and then I realized that the strategic plan template was actually incorrect. So that's not your fault, that is mine. So I actually have moved the due date from Sunday to Monday. So I'm giving you an extra day just to make sure that this is completed. So let's go through though what we have to do. Okay, so now that you have went through and received feedback on your application process, now what you're going to do is really you're going to back in some of that research into this template. Now, the biggest thing here is please don't turn in the directions. You can use the backbone structure of the different areas to be able to fill in, but please just remove the directions, right? That's not what the goal is. So this is purely just the strategic plan. Again, you're going to put a title at the top for yourself. You're going to put what your NGO is, and then you're going to start to fill in some of these bigger areas, but just remove the directions from each of these areas, right? That's not what the goal is, but you can absolutely use the rest of it as a backbone. So you're going to make a document. This in total will be, right? This is about 4 pages. That's what I mean by 3 to 5 pages. You're filling in the information into here, right? You're not like starting from scratch. That's why it's called a template. So now what you're going to do is you're going to identify this problem. You have already stated or went out and did a little research on something that maybe feels like it should be an issue or feels like it should be something you should be looking into. Also taking into context some of the feedback I have given you. But now you're going to go in and you're going to back in, why should I care about this, right? Why should I care about this should still have to start with, what is the problem? So what I'm getting you to think about here as you're putting this together will make so much more sense when you get into the pitch deck. But it's just like as if you were writing any other paper. You have to start with an introduction, provide context, narrow that topic down into what you want your audience to focus in on, right? And by the end of here, you're going to be justifying and saying, this is where your NGO is going to step in to fill that niche. If you are unsure, right, of how to connect this back to urban ecology, you have a beautiful textbook. This beautiful textbook has lots of information inside of it that can give you ideas, right? Especially if you received that feedback from the application process of, how is this relating back to class? How is this relating back to urban ecology? Use this as your guide to be able to flip through to highlighted areas, right? Specifics inside of the book as big topics, right? If you want to talk about restoration, find the chapter on restoration. If you want to talk about a specific type of animal or plant, focus on the section that talks about biological factors, right? This is your guidepost. And now you're telling me why I should care, right? So you've seen a great, probably infomercial. Have you been sick and tired of, spills that you just can't grab up with a paper towel at one time, right? They give you the pitch. They tell you why is this a problem for you? You should care about it. That's what you're doing here, but you're doing it in more of a strategic way by giving me the research, right? So let's say I think somebody had looked up or was looking at something aspect around trees and or urban forestry. Great. That is a wonderful topic. You've got the term urban, you've got forestry, you've got plants, you're going to find some information, but now you have to go find the research to convince me that this is a problem, right? So if, let's say, we are looking at concerns that are related to tree loss in Grapevine, Texas. Great. Simply type that into Google and then add in peer review. Don't reinvent the wheel here. Let the Google machine do the work for you, right? Figure this out in the sense that it can make life easier. So right away, it's pulling up things like .orgs, .gov, PDFs, tying it back to universities. This all lends credibility that someone is doing this research in and around tree loss in Grapevine, Texas, right? So now you're getting the case built. You're saying this really is an issue. And probably within here, right, you're going to start to get some stats and facts. This is the type of research I want you to pull out and say, did you know, right, that there are 9,790, and please don't use these specific metrics because again, do a little digging on your own. But as you're clicking on these are the resources that are going to give you the research that I'm looking for you to put in this opening section. Because at the end, and after you've looked at a couple different resources about this and said, okay, this is a real problem and I got to learn more about this. Wow. Now at the end, you're going to say, this is where my NGO is going to step in, right? I'm going to help to alleviate the problem of tree loss inside of Grapevine through my NGO. That is, again, setting you up for, through each step of this idea that you are going to be making a pitch to me as the city. So right now, you're kind of building your shock. How did you know X amount of trees are lost every year inside of Grapevine, Texas? And I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. That's pretty shocking. I don't like that number, right? You're giving me the wow factor. But right now, you're laying down the research as if we were putting together the report. Then you've already done some objectives, right? You've already looked at some of these objectives. You've gotten some feedback on some of your objectives. Now, what I really want you to do is blow those out into greater detail. Why do we think this particular objective is important? So if I am trying to, identify specific types of trees, that's a justification. That's an objective, right? Now you're taking something that you're telling me about tree loss in Grapevine, Texas, and now you're going to say, I want to focus in specifically on one type of tree. So I need to do some research on these types of trees. Now you're going to go out, right? And probably in these reports, it's got exactly a breakdown of the different types of trees that they're losing inside of Grapevine, right? You've now got the peer review paper, you've got the justification, and now you can say, my group wants to add to this collective research knowledge. So our first objective is, again, to do a background survey of how many of these types of trees currently exist. Why is this important? Because X amount of trees every year of this type are removed from the environment, right? Now you've got the research to support it and you're saying, I got to fill in the gap, right? What are you hoping that you can do with that? Well, I'm hoping that maybe by the time a year has passed, I've been able to survey 2 sites. Do you see what I'm saying? This is why becoming hyper specific is really important. And again, I know this is all fictional, but you're using the research that does actually exist to justify the fictional part of this. I'm looking for 3 major ones, right? And again, 2 to 3 paragraphs. These are your 3 paragraphs right here. Paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3. And you're filling in this information, right? In any business, if I'm going to start something new, I have to do a needs assessment and I have to do a SWOT analysis, right? So we're pulling in a little bit of these key terms of business. This still relates back to urban ecology, because if I'm developing urban policy, if I'm trying to, justify removal of a park to put apartment complexes or removal of apartment complexes to put a park, I have to go out and do exactly this. I have to now justify why. So again, needs assessment. Now you're going to say, what specifically am I filling in? I'm filling in the gap of loss of biodiversity. I'm filling in the gap of increasing oxygen levels, right? Again, the more you can go back to what you started with as being a problem, right? And that is what you're going to fill in here. There is a need to fill in this gap, and that's what I'm going to do. SWOT analysis. I know you are not all business majors, but again, the point here is just look over what these terms mean. What are things that you're going to be able to bring to the table? You are a researcher. That's what you're doing right now. You have the capability of knowing how to go out and look for, right, appropriate research to put that together and as a report, right? What are some of your weaknesses? Well, you might not have startup funding, right? You might not have all the correct people. You might not have a full team. What are some opportunities? Well, I might not be able to have the strengths, but if I partner with a university, if I partner with a another nonprofit, or if I partner with Texas A&M Forestry, they can help to fill in some of those gaps. And then threats. Well, are there any, probably some of the threats here in the case of this particular example, maybe there are business developers that want to take that land. Again, it's fictional, but you're trying to put on the hat of thinking through what would I have to really worry about if I was putting this together? So now comes again, what is your research strategies? So based on the needs assessment, define your top priorities. Okay, so you know that you've got your objectives. You would like to increase biodiversity, all of these things. What is your priority one? What is going to be the first thing that you're going to work on based off of what you've just identified as maybe being a weakness or a threat? Or maybe you're going to use your strength to your advantage, or you've already got a great relationship, right, with one of your other nonprofits. Most of the time, what we see is individuals focusing on things that they're not so great at, right, and trying to improve that. So priority number one, what is the priority crucial based on existing data studies? We don't really know how many trees of this particular species exist. Well, I have an internal strength on being able to do research. That's my first priority. I'm absolutely going to go out and do that first, right? Now you're setting up your timeline, so to speak. And again, you're using the research that you've already given me as your support. Priority number two, well, after that, then I need to form an internal team. We need to do, we need to bring this report to, we need to print a report and make the report policy, put that together and go to our partners in Grapevine, to the city of Dallas, or to the city of Grapevine, and find others that are working in this area of research. All you're doing here is, again, tying your priorities really back to, what did you tell me your objectives were going to be? Then, again, going back to your application, who did you tell me your partnerships were going to be and why? Now I really want you to focus, and this is where a lot of you were maybe a little bit too broad, but this is where I really want you to focus in on, is there a certain age, a demographic? It could just be a keystone species. It could be a species that's really important in that area that relies on those trees. Those things are going to be, again, why this is important. Who's going to help you, right? In this case, I would imagine that for sure going to Texas A&M Forestry, City of Grapevine, Texas tree surgeons, right? These are all individuals that are going to help you and making sure that you can get your program off the ground and giving you feedback. Then how are you going to get the community involved? You are a non-government organization. The goal, most importantly, is going to be to showcase that you are making this difference. So what sort of marketing, what sort of advertising, what sort of community engagements are you going to do to really bring people to the table on this? Finally, I have put this together. I want you to have a minimum of 2 goals, and I gave you an example, right? So you're going to have 2 goals, and you're going to really kind of think through the impact, the justification, and the measurement. So look at my example here and go back through what you believe you are for sure going to be able to conquer. So again, going back to my tree analogy, after I identify, after I know that I'm filling in a gap of there is nobody that has the assessment of what this is, then I am going to plant 500 trees within year 1, right? My goal here, if in my example of increasing climate change, I'm going to engage 10,000 people. That's a lofty goal, right? But I'm going to, engage this over the next 2 years. The justification, the research shows that public awareness is the best way to bring about, understanding what climate change is. And what are the measurements? Well, I'm going to do some survey analysis. I'm going to see, do I change people's minds, right? So really just two major goals there. I've given you a little table to sort of fill out your budget need. Then you're going to end with, again, what is the importance of your NGO? And all I'm doing here is, again, you're going to take these little bites to put into your slide deck for your video pitch and trying to sell me on getting you the funding. And again, there is your references in APA citation format. So that's it. I hope this provides a better explanation, but if it doesn't, again, you have until Monday now. I've opened that up until Monday. You have until Monday to be able to complete this. So look over the video, check everything out. And again, any questions or comments, concerns, most of you, I think, are on the right track. I think most of you are doing a great job. It's probably just you needed a little bit more of the specifics, the detail, or your objectives were really, really broad. You need to really kind of narrow and focus in. Here's the opportunity to do exactly that. All right, good luck. And again, reach out to me if you have any questions at all.